Professor Amelia Rossi adjusted her headlamp and peered into the darkness. The beam danced off the rough-hewn stones that formed the ceiling of what was once a Roman sewer. Now, thanks to new excavations beneath the city's tourist-filled Colosseum, this ancient tunnel had been exposed to the outside air for the first time in almost 2,000 years. And it was here that the Italian archaeologist and her team were about to make an unbelievable discovery. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button for more great horror stories. Also, stick around until the end of the story to hear an absolutely spine-chilling twist you won't want to miss. Amelia's headlamp cut through the gloom, revealing a tunnel that looked like something out of a Dan Brown novel. As she walked further into the passageway, the smell of stale waste hit her, quickly replaced by something else, something she couldn't quite place. The stale air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. It wasn't just the smell, though. There was also a sound, a low rumble that seemed to emanate from the very stones themselves. It was faint at first, like the distant murmur of traffic on the crowded streets above. But as she descended deeper into the bowels of the earth, the noise grew steadily louder. At first, it was a dull roar, but then it began to take shape. Taking on the form of screams, the cries of men echoed through the tunnel, their voices high-pitched and desperate, each one a different shade of terror, some mournful, some panicked, some resigned to their fate. They sounded like they were right outside the tunnel, close enough to touch, and yet they were coming from within the very walls themselves. A chill ran down Amelia's spine, but she pushed on. She was too close to whatever was down there to turn back now. Then suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a large cavern. In the center, a single shaft of moonlight illuminated a pile of old chains. They were thick and strong, rusted and covered in grime, but they were clearly old. This was no ordinary sewer. It was a dungeon, a place where men had been held captive, tortured, and executed. Amelia felt a cold dread grip her heart as she stepped over the threshold. Her headlamp cast eerie shadows that danced and twisted across the rough-hewn stone walls. The air grew colder, sending shivers down her spine. The smell of iron and blood filled her nostrils, making her stomach churn. What had happened down here? Who were the victims of this underground hell? As she ventured deeper into the cavern, her headlamp revealed the gruesome answer. Carved into the stone walls were dozens of names, each one a testament to the horrors that had unfolded here centuries ago. Some were short, others long, some were indecipherable, but all of them told a tale of suffering and despair. Among them, however, one name stood out, the only one that wasn't ancient. It was the name of one of Amelia's teammates, Marco, who had been exploring another part of the tunnel system when Amelia had found this cavern. She called out his name, but only her own echo answered. Marco was gone. Panic threatened to engulf her, but she forced it down. She had to stay calm. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Marco had simply stumbled upon another passageway and gotten lost. It was easy to do in this labyrinth of tunnels. But as she continued to search, the fear in her chest grew. She found signs of a struggle near the entrance to the cavern, a toppled stone block and a few scattered pebbles. And then she saw it, a smear of fresh blood on the wall, dark against the grime and age. It couldn't have been there 2 minutes ago. Her worst fears confirmed, Amelia fell to her knees. Just as the crushing weight of despair threatened to consume her, a glint of moonlight on stone caught her eye. In the far corner of the cavern, hidden in the shadows, was a narrow opening, barely visible in the dim light. Hope surged through her like a jolt of electricity. It could lead to an exit, maybe even to Marco. Adrenaline coursing through her veins, she scrambled towards it, brushing aside cobwebs and centuries of dust. The opening was just large enough for her to squeeze through. On the other side, it was pitch black, but she didn't need her headlamp. Her eyes, accustomed to the darkness, could see well enough to navigate the tunnel. It was narrow and low, forcing her to stoop as she made her way deeper into the earth. The air was stagnant and heavy, making it hard to breathe. The tunnel opened into another cavern, and this one was different. The air crackled with energy, and the ground beneath her feet hummed with power. In the center of the cavern, chained to a pillar of solid rock, was a single altar. On it, an array of strange symbols and glyphs, their meanings lost to time. But the strange carvings weren't what captivated Amelia's attention. It was the inscription above the altar that made her freeze in her tracks. Carved in what looked like fresh grooves were the words, "Beware the depths below." A warning in Latin, its meaning clear. Beneath her feet was a trapdoor, a gateway to a place even the ancient Romans feared. As if sensing her apprehension, the trapdoor rumbled, slowly opening to reveal a gaping abyss. Amelia recoiled in horror, her mind struggling to comprehend what lay before her. A spiral staircase descended into the darkness, disappearing into a pit that seemed to stretch on forever. A bone-chilling wind poured out from the opening, carrying with it the stench of decay and the whisper of tormented souls. Then, as if summoned by her thoughts, the screams began again, louder than ever, filling the cavern with their echoing cacophony. The sight of the trapdoor, the sound of the screams, it was all too much for Amelia's sanity. She broke down, overcome by the horrors that surrounded her. Just then, a hand touched her shoulder. She whirled around to see one of her colleagues, his face etched with concern. "Amelia, we have to get out of here," he said urgently. "This place is dangerous." But she couldn't move, couldn't speak. All she could do was stare at the trapdoor and listen to the screams. Then, as suddenly as it started, the rumbling stopped. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. When she finally turned to her colleague, he was gone. She searched for him, calling out his name, but he didn't answer. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Panic surged through her, propelling her into action. She scrambled to her feet and ran for the opening, racing back towards the familiar safety of the daylight world. But as she emerged from the tunnel, the screams started again, closer now and filled with a new urgency. She risked a glance over her shoulder and gasped. The trapdoor in the cavern floor had opened wider, and a dark, roiling mass was rising from its depths, tendrils of shadow reaching out like grasping claws. Then it reared its head, and she screamed, stumbling back in terror. But there was nothing there. Only the gaping hole in the ground and the echoes of her own fear. Had she imagined it? Was it just a figment of her stress-filled imagination? Or was there truly something evil stirring beneath the Colosseum? Something that had taken her teammate and was now hunting her? She needed to find help, to tell someone what she had seen. But then she noticed something that made her freeze. On the cavern wall beside the trapdoor, she saw the same name she had seen in the tunnel, the one that hadn't been there before. But now there was another inscription next to it, fresh and horrifying. And that's when the truth hit her like a physical blow. The name wasn't just there for her to find. It was a warning, a grim prophecy of what was to come. The last thing she saw before everything went black was the satisfaction in the eyes of the creature from hell as it whispered her name. So I ask you, was Amelia destined to meet the same fate as her missing comrade? And did you enjoy this terrifying tale? Well, if you did, don't forget to leave us a like and share it with a friend. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching and happy haunting.